Governor.
Question for you. If she asked, would you consider joining Kamala Harris?
Are we not talking about concrete anymore? Or what? Got to finish your question, Dan.
If she asked, would you consider joining Kamala Harris on her ticket?
Well, let me begin by saying a word about President Biden. I had the privilege to be able to speak to him just a few moments after he issued his statement yesterday. President Biden is an extraordinary public servant. He has served this country, the state of Delaware, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as our third senator for a long time, and of course this nation so honorably. And the work that he has done is going to lead to positive change for generations to come. We're talking about one of those particular decisions here that the EPA is announcing today. I couldn't be more grateful for President Biden's service. President Biden has often remarked that one of the most important decisions he had to make was selecting a vice president. And in that, he selected Vice President Harris, who has been by his side as this nation has built ourselves back and made extraordinary progress. President Biden yesterday endorsed Vice President Harris, as did I, as did many across this country, not only because of how honorably she has served in the past, but how absolutely ready she is to be president and to be the standard bearer for our party. She will now have to make an important decision, as then candidate Biden had to make, and that is who to run with, who should be her running mate. That's a deeply personal decision, and a decision that should be made really free from any political pressure. It's a decision she needs to make, who she wants to govern with, who she wants to campaign with, and who can be there to serve alongside her when she serves as, God willing, the 47th President of the United States. She will make that decision when she is ready, and I have all the confidence in the world that she will make that decision along with many others in the best interests of the American people.
But if she were to ask, would you say yes?
Has the vice president?
You're only here to visit your family in Western PA.
Has the vice president discussed the possibility of serving as her running mate with you? Have you had conversations?
I spoke to the vice president yesterday, shortly after I spoke to the president. You know what we focused on? Defeating Donald Trump. Our conversation is all about how we beat Donald Trump and protect our freedoms here in this Commonwealth. We talked about how we can't go back to a time, as Donald Trump did, where he ripped away our freedoms, from the freedom to be able to try and join a union. Remember, this is the same guy who went to the Supreme Court to try and turn this Commonwealth and this country into a right-to-work place. We will never be a right-to-work state as long as I'm governor, and we will never be a right-to-work nation as long as Kamala Harris is our president. This is a guy who injected chaos in our lives in the past and wants to do it again. He wants to rip away health care from 1.2 million Pennsylvanians. This is a guy who has looked at the kind of workers who work here with great disdain. He spent a career screwing over the kind of workers that work here at CBS, the kind of workers that work with Darren Kelly and our unions here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so the conversations I've had with the vice president are all about one thing and one thing only. How do we defeat Donald Trump? How do we protect our freedom? And how do we make Pennsylvania, which was the epicenter of the creation of our democracy 248 years ago and is going to be the epicenter of our politics today, how do we make sure that Pennsylvania elects Kamala Harris to be our next president?
But again, if Vice President Harris had asked you...
President Harris yesterday, did she mention that you were under consideration to be vice president?
We spoke only about defeating Donald Trump and our shared commitment to that. I immediately gave her my endorsement and said I would do everything in my power to support her here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
But if she were to come to you today and ask you, would you say yes?
I'm happy to try and answer your questions. I just have to hear them one at a time.
I just said you don't want her doing all that thinking if you're going to say no, though.
What's the question?
You said that you want her to be able to think hard and pick who she wants. Would you at least be interested as a well-loved governor of the largest battleground state?
Oh, you're so nice. I appreciate it. Yeah, well. Listen, all I'm focused on is defeating Donald Trump. I served as Attorney General when he was president. I had to take that guy to court over and over and over again, by the way, won every single time, to defend our right to vote, to defend women's reproductive rights, to defend the rights of workers to be able to form and join a union. We do not want to go back to that. We don't want to go back to a time where Donald Trump literally sued the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to disenfranchise our voters here. And by the way, he and his allies sued us 43 times. He went 0-43, I went 43-0, and we had a free and fair, safe and secure election that Joe Biden won in 2020. What I am focused on is making sure we don't go back to Donald Trump's chaos and that we elect Kamala Harris, the next president of the United States. I will tell you that I have known the vice president for nearly 20 years. Nearly 20 years. We have both been prosecutors. We have both stood up for the rule of law. And we have always both been for the people. That is diametrically opposed to everything Donald Trump has stood for. A man who has routinely screwed over the people. A man who has no respect for the rule of law. And I'll tell you what, I like our chances running a prosecutor against a guy who's a convicted felon 43 times over so far.
Governor, it's reported that Eric Holder's law firm is handling the vetting of VP candidates. Have you heard from anyone in that law firm?
I have not, no.
Governor, there's one other governor already taking themselves out of the running for vice president.
I don't know who's talking.
Hi.
Yes.
Sorry. If the vice president asked you to be your running mate,
I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals. This is a deeply personal decision that the vice president will make. She will make it on her own timetable and her own timeline. She needs to choose someone that she's prepared to govern with, campaign with, and someone that she feels most comfortable with. And that decision should be made free of any sort of political pressure.
Are you interested in the job?
I'm focused on doing my job here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm focused here on bringing in the second largest federal investment. And I'm focused every single day on 3 letters, GSD. We focus on getting shit done for the good people of Pennsylvania.
Governor, if I may. So you've made.
I think the Newcastle News, which is the New York Times of Lawrence County, had a question. Hang on. You all have your hands up back there? All right. Go ahead.
Governor, if I may, it sounds like you made it clear you don't want to engage in that hypothetical, but do you think that
I literally made that.
you literally made that clear. But, I mean, you understand why we're asking the question, because you're going to continue to get this question posed to you between now and the Democrat.
I'm psyched y'all are here in Western PA. I hope you stop by Eaton Park, get some cookies. I hope you stay in our hotels.
Yeah.
I hope you spend a whole lot of money here
I'm
in
with Pittsburgh's
Pennsylvania.
Action News 4, so I mean, we've been covering you day to day, but do you think you're among the most qualified candidates on the list of names that have been floated?
The vice president, who will soon be our 47th president, she will make that determination going forward as to who is best to serve alongside her in running this country.
Yesterday in your statement, you said you would do anything to help Kamala Harris become our nation's next president. If she wants you on that ticket with her to do that, do you say yes?
I'm not going to engage in those hypotheticals. The vice president is going to make her decision.
Governor, I have a question. Quinn Lubicki, Public Source. When you see Western Pennsylvania after this grant, after this program has been implemented, what is the Pennsylvania that you see 10, 15, 20 years from now?
I want to answer that, and I want the administrator to jump in on that as well. I see a Pennsylvania where we address the legacy of pollution by putting more people to work, not less, to create family-sustaining jobs that allow folks to have pride in the work they do in their factories and go out and hunt and fish on the weekends with clean streams and clean air to breathe. I see a Pennsylvania where we have been a leader on energy production for generations. We are a net energy exporter. We are proud of that heritage. And we are proud of what that means for Pennsylvania families. And we believe that that is going to help us move forward in a cleaner, greener environment that puts more folks in organized labor to work, that puts more food on the table for families, that lets that family that was maybe struggling know that they can provide for their kids, they can feed them, they can maybe take them on that week vacation in the mountains, that they can have that opportunity to live a dignified life. I see a lot of dignity in the good work that happens here in Western Pennsylvania. And as I think about our next chapter of clean energy in this nation, I think about the hands of organized labor. I think the hands of Western Pennsylvanians who have done this work for generations, who are now absolutely ready on focusing on a cleaner future, one where there's a whole lot more work to do.
I don't think I could do any better than that, except for, say, multiply that by 50 plus territories in our tribal communities. That's the answer.
I'm counting. Okay. Got it.
Governor, what would your message be to Americans and Democratic primary voters who might be uncomfortable with how this process around the president played out? He won the Democratic primary, he clinched the nomination, and to some it looks like he was forced out of the race. What would be your message to folks who might be a little uncomfortable with this?
Well, I've stood by President Biden. I stood by President Biden years ago when he selected Kamala Harris to be his vice president because he knew she had what it took to be able to be president then. And when he endorsed her just yesterday, he knows she has what it takes to be president tomorrow. She has been preparing for this, and she is ready to go. And I'm proud to stand with her, as are scores of Democratic elected officials, as well as Democrats and Republicans and independents I've spoken to in the community who are excited about this, who understand the very serious threat that Donald Trump poses to our fundamental freedoms, who understand the very serious risk our democracy faces if Donald Trump is given the keys to the White House again. Those folks I've talked to, they want to win. And they believe Kamala Harris is our best chance to win, and I believe that too, which is why I endorsed her immediately yesterday after the president did. The president knows better than anyone else that Kamala Harris is up to this job, and I think the good people of Pennsylvania and the good folks all across this country are going to get to see that as we go forward in this campaign over the next 100 plus days. All right, we'll take one more.
Oh, sorry, Governor. So you're the only candidate that's gotten more votes than Biden did in 2022. You've gotten the most votes, basically, I think, in PA history or something. What's your advice to Kamala Harris as she's running to try to win over this state?
She didn't need my advice. She's doing just fine. And I think Kamala Harris represents the views and values of this Commonwealth. And as she comes and introduces herself, not as the vice president to Joe Biden, but as the Democratic nominee, God willing, and as a presidential candidate, lays out her vision, her agenda for this Commonwealth and this country, I think the good people of Pennsylvania are going to be real excited. I'm going to do everything in my power to be out for her, talking about her views, sharing her values, telling people about the Kamala Harris I've known for nearly 20 years, and about the direction I know she wants to take this country, as well as the very serious threat that Donald Trump poses to the future of this great Commonwealth in this country. Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it.